Welcome everybody to a deeper dive quick look where we're going to take a deeper dive into who these hackers are and all the things that's related to that. So welcome again, and let's just jump right in. I've got a glitch with my computer. I've got some slides that are duping, so just bear with me here. So you guys have seen this slide before, more than likely, but it's who are the hackers? Well, you can generally put them into about four different categories. One's organized crime that I've probably spoke to ad nauseum, but let's just say it's probably around a $3 trillion a year business globally. There's literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of individuals that are in this. They're either single criminals or a part of a criminal group that are in this to make money. Another classification are nation states, and these days they're more or less classified as APT groups, advanced persistent threats. These threat actors are, their main deal is to get on a network and stay undetected for periods of time for espionage and other things. United States is on that list, just like North Korea is. The next one is insider threats. And these insider threats can be both malicious and non-malicious or ignorant. And I don't use the term ignorant in a derogatory way. Ignorance simply means doesn't know something. And there's a lot of things I don't know. There's a lot of things that everyone doesn't know. And if you're not doing security awareness training in your organization, well, your users are much more likely to click on file attachments or to fall for scams like, hey, go buy 10 Apple gift cards and then send me the numbers on them. Those are scams. And there's all kinds of stories. A friend of mine has an insurance company. They almost wired $50,000 to a bank in New York through one of these type scams, and it would have been unrecoverable. But fortunately, they had internal controls and were able to stop it. And, those are ignorant, non-malicious threat actors. They're still allowing the attack to occur. And then there's the malicious insider threats. These are disgruntled employees, perhaps former employees that are looking to disrupt or cause chaos in the organization, just cause trouble for the organization. And then finally, there's hacktivists, lone wolves, and other malcontents. I generally put all these together. In the case of probably most of the people on the call, I can't think of any of the groups that outside of anybody that would be a target of ISIS. I guess some of the government clients that we have would fall under this. But, and in fact, I'll just use one. Say there's a court system that convicts somebody, and maybe a lone wolf or some other malcontent or a hacktivist decides to go after the court system or the judge or something like that. Once again, it's not usually for financial benefit, but they're just looking to sow seeds of chaos, disruption, and it's a revenge type thing a lot of the times. But those are basically the hacker groups, right? And we've talked about this several times on a lot of different webinars. But you've got to know what these personas of these threat actors are. You've got to understand their motivations. You've got to understand their objectives. And then these research groups, and this is outside of what IronTech does. Remember, security is a huge, huge business. They're specialists in all types. I've mentioned before, penetration testers are not what IronTech does, although we rely on them and partner with them to discover if we've got a client that can be actively hacked. Now, we do vulnerability assessments, but that's different. an actual penetration tester actively tries to hack into an organization. A vulnerability assessment that we do only looks at where are you vulnerable? You know, like what ports are open, what services are discoverable from the outside world. And then we look at all the threat actors and all these other different things, the types of threats, the technical parts of the threats. We gauge all of that when we do an assessment, and then working with you and maybe your IT team, we develop a proactive and a reactive plan for that. So understanding these groups' tactical measures or their tools, their techniques, and the procedures, which is TTP, then that helps companies such as ours and organizations such as yours understanding what the threats are and how best to preempt the threat, you know, be proactive, but also understanding when an actual event occurs, how to respond to it, and assigning a likelihood of what it is. A ransomware attack, with the exception of North Korea, is very likely not a nation state or an APT, although sometimes they leave behind APT things or APT tools that can later be, the locations of these tools can later be sold to nation states. The ransomware itself is usually almost always a criminal or a criminal syndicate. Now, having said that, in the case of North Korea, they are desperate for cash. And in fact, just recently, they sold a bunch of their Bitcoin for cash. That, well, the researchers say that. And they're probably right, because they do need cash. So North Korea is actively participating in ransomware attacks, as well as stealing intellectual property, trying to penetrate Department of Defense, State Department stuff, all of these other things that normal nation states like the United States, Israel, United Kingdom, friends and foes, the major cyber warfare countries on earth. That's the best way to think of that. And so understanding these threat actors, their motives, their tools, and these TTPs, that helps us and you develop strategy. And that's what we're about. That's it. We develop strategy and orchestrate our strategy tools, administrative controls, and these others. Look back at some of the deeper dives where I talk about these terms that you may not be familiar with. You know, what is administrative controls? What are technical controls? What are physical controls? What does orchestration mean? We've done a webinar on that. So look back, or even better, ask a question. I'll be happy to you know, briefly describe what those things are. So feel free to jump in there and ask the question. We're on top of it. All right, so you think about that intelligence that's being gathered by these research organizations. That's not something we do. We need to know what the research is telling us. Like, we need to know what a penetration tester has discovered on a client's network. We don't take offense at that. We want to know if it can be actively penetrated. And it may be something that may be in your control, right? Like security awareness training or establishing that security first environment. Maybe that's where it all broke down. In fact, I'd be willing to wager in most cases that is where it breaks down first, or at least it's a part of it. I think over 90%, and these statistics vary over time, but I've seen some studies that over 90% of breaches occur because of some human being getting conned, especially with ransomware. We're going to get into this, and I'll talk a little bit more about the Stuxnet attack here in just a minute or two. That was what we call in the business social engineering, but what's known on the street as a con job, a confidence scheme, or a scam. Okay. So as an example of what we can do, understanding who these threat actors and their tools and procedures are, we know that there's certain types of industry, generally speaking, that we have to consider other things. So if you are a part of our nation's critical infrastructure, So you deliver a utility such as electricity, water, gas, maybe gasoline. You know, these are things that are part of our critical infrastructure. So you're going to be subject more to APT attacks, nation states, and terrorist attacks. You know, they want to disrupt the water supply or the electric supply or the gas supply. And so we know that we're going to be using different tools and different types of administrative controls that we're going to add it to the number of layers that we want to protect your utility. Now, maybe you're an attorney that has intellectual property. Maybe you're an attorney that represents large businesses, or maybe you're in international trade. Well, you've got intellectual property. You've got secrets, maybe nation state secrets that you have access to, and you've got emails on, or you've got documents on. Well, this is IP and other data that can be used to copy patented stuff or corporate secrets or nation state secrets. And nation states are going to want to attack that. So we want to consider that. Now, if you're a divorce attorney, we're probably not going to worry too much about nation states outside of the ransomware attacks. But you just have to think of the nature of your law firm as well. Health and finance information. This is the biggest threat to that outside of ransomware is PII. That is personally identifiable information. Social security number, name, address, phone number, next of kin, all these questions that are asked when you call the bank and ask them what, you know, the balance is or whatever you're trying to get out. They're going to ask you all these different things that's in these records. And that is very valuable in the criminal world, as well as the ransomware. But everyone on this call is vulnerable to a ransomware attack. You are not too small. All data is valuable. And furthermore, these criminal enterprises are so big and they operate at such automated scale. Remember that these aren't an email that a human being sat down and typed out and sent it just to you. They're blasting out 10 million of these at a time, or whatever they're doing. You know, they may have different profiles they're trying to attack. And in fact, I don't know, when are we doing did you get the poll going, Kenzie?
We haven't launched it yet, but I can whenever you're ready.
Okay. Let me see. I got 9 slides. Why don't you just go ahead and launch the poll? Okay. Because it's kind of interesting. Since I'm on the topic of, I'm just we're just kind of winging it here. The police got me all messed up, the bank robbery. But at any rate, what type of business is most likely to click on a phishing email? So if you're in, law is not on here, but just think about your accountant or your financial advisor. Do you think they are more likely, people in that industry are more likely to click on an email attachment from somebody they don't know and unleash a ransomware attack? I don't know of another way to say that, but but yeah, if you're whatever business you're in, just think about it. Is everybody in my office going to click on, even if you got security awareness training, you'd be amazed. So I got 5, 6 responses.
Yeah, 6 out of 9.
Yeah. All right.
It's looking like media.
Yeah. All right. So this is fascinating what this does. I think I may just go ahead and give the results out now, and then we'll move to the next slide.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll.
Okay. Well, when I took this poll, I guess media myself, and then probably finance was my number 2 pick. Surprisingly, The right answer is information technology. And then the second one is finance. And I don't remember how the other two came out, but they were significantly ahead of the others. If you're grading on a curve, those two got A's and the rest, everybody else are B's and C's. So IT people or teams, whether it's internal or outsource, that IT environment is accustomed, there are the IT guys and gals and teams, they're typically firemen, right? They're help desk. You've got a problem, you need it fixed, you can't do your job. They respond to things as fast as possible. It is the nature of the business. Finance, if you think of financial advisor or stockbrokers, maybe accountants to a lesser degree, they also have urgency. They have an urgent thing they've got to reply to. It's time critical. Well, IT is the most time critical of all of those four anyway. Healthcare, things that are time critical for them they don't usually involve emails. It's usually life-saving, the medical equipment itself, not emails. And so it doesn't, once I understood that profile of victims of cyber attacks, it made perfect sense. And this matches up, like last week's and the week before's deeper dive, it matches up why IT and cybersecurity are fundamentally opposed to each other. And you need to make sure those roles are filled by two different executive reporting levels. You don't put a security guy underneath an IT guy. They both need to be talking to the CEO. Now, they need to work together to get a proper balance between security and productivity. But the CEO or the manager or wherever that buck stops, that risk has to be clearly understood. Because if you don't understand that risk, you're going to have you might have TV cameras put in front of you. You're going to be headlines in the newspaper. And perhaps worse of all, some of you may have threatened the lives of your community. And without a doubt, if you didn't understand that risk, you're going to be the head that rolls first. So that's why security awareness training is so super critical. And that's also why your cybersecurity strategy should involve a security specialist. Remember, cybersecurity is not a subset of IT. Cybersecurity is a subset of security, video surveillance, things like that. It's two completely, well, not completely different, but they come at it from two different philosophies. Okay. I hear some voices outside, so I don't know if that's the police or not, but nobody's knocked on the door yet. So, all right. So let's look at this Stuxnet attack on Iran. This became public news in 2010. This was a United States and Israel coordinated attack on Iran's centrifuges. It was put into place. What basically happened is United States and Israel collaborated, and nobody knows all the details on this, but it's never been denied. And these researchers that we rely on has looked at the source code, and they go, yeah, if you review source code, you can nail whoever it is. If you've been in the industry with a lot of experience for a few years, you can say, oh, that's this group and that's this group. Just like Microsoft programmers have their own style and syntax and standards of code. Well, everybody works like that. But basically, in 2000, it's believed that in 2005, United States and Israel spent, or beginning in 2005, spent the most money ever developing Stuxnet by far. Millions of dollars went into this. Many years of planning went into this. And what Stuxnet did, it started with George W. Bush's administration, and then Barack Obama also, it was under his too. So they're spending money on this to slow down the Iranian nuclear program. And so what Stuxnet did Stuxnet, I can't say that word, Stuxnet did was it targeted specific SCADA systems. These were Siemens industrial control systems that both controlled and monitored the centrifuges. Now, what was clever about it is, number one, it was stealth. It was not detected on the network. And then even after it did its damage, it still wasn't detected. And the facility was air gapped, so they couldn't hack into it and plant the virus in there. So it installed a rootkit, and then it attacked the SCADA system. And not only did it speed the centrifuges up beyond their operational limit, thereby damaging them, it also affected the SCADA system in the reporting, and it said everything is fine. They're all operating normally, while at the same time, the centrifuges were destroying themselves. Now, the air gap thing was overcome, it's believed, by distributing flash drives in the parking lot. And apparently someone picked up a flash drive, walked inside the facility, and put it into a computer, thereby spreading it over the entire network for it to begin to look for these very, very specific Siemens controllers. If it didn't find them, it didn't do anything. It just killed itself. But they knew these were there. And then it went ahead and went about doing its damage. Now, in 2010, this became public knowledge, and the source code, I don't know if they reversed engineered it or what happened, but now that very tool that the United States and Israel developed is for sale on the dark web, and it's been modified to do attacks against companies and other SCADA devices or other industrial control systems. Incidentally, United States itself has been attacked with forms of Stuxnet, which goes to the issue of once a tool is developed, no matter who it is, they can't control it. It will get into the wild, right? That's a perfect example of the breach that occurred at the National Security Administration, our nation's most advanced cryptology unit. They're the guys that, along with CIA and others, there's several departments and Department of Defense and outside and this, that, and the other that do cyber warfare or cyber attacks on various, nation states or whatever. And those tools, not only Stuxnet, but tools that the NSA themselves are out in the wild because the NSA itself got breached. So there's all these little Pandora boxes that are getting opened up all over. Same thing with Iran. If they develop one, I'm sure some of theirs are out there. And it touches on this political thing with Apple refusing to create backdoors into their devices because they know once it's been created, it can be used against innocent people by criminals and nation states. Once it's created, they don't have a magic backdoor, and that's why they don't have one, because if they created it for their own use, it would get out in the wild. And without getting too political and without getting on a soapbox, I think we're going to do a whole deeper dive on that at some point. I'd like to, because the knee-jerk reaction is, oh man, that San Bernardino killing was horrible. Why doesn't Apple cooperate with FBI? And sometimes, just like when the British broke the Enigma machine that the Germans had, and they could read all of their messages, there were certain times to where the British knew of an imminent attack, but they had to let it happen, because if they didn't, the Germans would know they'd broke the code. They were looking for the greater good. And I don't want to get into it too much, but once those tools are developed, they're out there, and the criminals and everybody else is going to get their hands on them. I can go get the Stuxnet virus right now, and I could go out and buy software to build a ransomware kit. I can go out and get the NSA hacking tools right now. Now, those of you that was on the dark web deeper dive, you saw where that is. It's all on the dark web, right? Anyway, okay, so let's get down to the brass tacks here. I want to show you how it all ties in together. So we want to apply that threat actor intelligence. Now, the way we do that, and this is most of this is our core stuff. An EDR, this will protect you against ransomware. One of our EDRs, I don't think has ever been defeated. Maybe in the world it has, but not on any of our clients. A SIM tool will protect it, or at least detect industrial control systems, other network devices, or SCADA systems, which are industrial control systems. That's kind of optional. If you're a law firm without any of that, you don't need it. Another thing that we've got as part of our core product is establishing that security first environment. You want people, if you see something, say something. You don't want to penalize your people if they clicked on a file attachment, you want them to report it. If they're non-malicious threat actors, it's not their fault. I have fallen for them. Okay. Your IT guy has probably fallen for them. They're very well crafted these days and very well done. The days of looking for poor grammar and all of that, that's highly unusual to see one like that these days. And then finally, what we provide in addition to all of that is our security orchestration and then automated response too. But we also have to have the human threat detection and mitigation. So we have SOC specialists or security operations center specialists that help us both detect and mitigate threats. And then we orchestrate, or IronTech orchestrates this with you, with your IT team, and our multiple best of breed vendors to do a network assessment, to roll out the solution, to mitigate an attack, and then finally get you back in business or kill it off the virus and getting your business back up and running. And so that intelligence that we have on threat actors drives it to this point. Now, you've seen this slide many times, and it's going to tie it into the threat actors and all of that. But most importantly, it ties into the NIST, NIST cybersecurity framework. So the NIST CSF that we've talked about a couple of times, and going to our this correlates with the cybersecurity framework that organizations of all types are using all over the world. It's really kind of the global standard. There's some competing ones, but I believe the NIST is the most used one. Continuous security awareness training, continuous, because you got to be able to respond to new threats. Endpoint detect and respond, which is a technical control. It's a super turbo antivirus. If you're using antivirus, you might as well not be using anything anymore. We don't even support antivirus, and we don't sell it anymore. But EDR is a much better tool. You cannot buy that off the shelf, and you have to be a security specialist to get access to it. And then finally, you've got to have a backup and business continuity or business resilience plan. So those are 3 layers. Remember, we've talked about the onion. You got the core data that you're trying to protect. Now, what layers are we going to add to it? Well, the way it correlates with the cybersecurity framework is this. Those 3 core things will give you at least 2 layers on each of the 5 things to consider: identifying what your core assets are, protecting those core assets, detecting a threat against those core assets, finally developing, in the case of in the case of attack, how are you going to respond? These are all orchestrated as well. These are kind of the technical controls. And then finally, what's the recovery? These 5 things is what it goes into a lot more detail, but this is distilling the cybersecurity framework down at an executive summary level. Okay. So just with our core product, you're getting at least 2 layers on each one of those cybersecurity frameworks, high level things. So And we got others too. Now, SimTool is not part of this because we got a lot of people on the call that, they don't need a SimTool necessarily. It's never a bad idea, but cybersecurity has to be weighed against productivity and financial concerns. That's why a security officer has to talk to marketing and has to talk to finance and has to talk to IT, because security officer will strip all the file attachments off the emails. Well, that's not practical, right? That gets operations in there. Well, I got to have file attachments so I, get quotes, things like that. So there's a lot to unpack here. We may revisit this sometime. But as always, if you want us to do a free high-level assessment, we can usually knock those out pretty good. Just give us a call, send us an email, whatever you want to do there, however you want to reach out to us, because we'd love to do it. Give you a ballpark. We've done a bunch of these, and we understand the threat actors. We understand what business you're in. We know the tools, and most importantly is we have the administrative controls to prevent you guys from having to talk to Channel 5 News or get on CNN or be in the New York Times, whatever that is. We don't want that to happen. But if it does, we even have crisis management as well. So that's just another layer. That's part of business resilience. You've got to have crisis management to be a part of your business continuity plan. So it's not just the backups. You got to do all of that stuff. So anyway, we still got the 30-day trial of security training, which is great. I beat that horse a whole bunch. We can run your credentials on the dark web to see if they're for sale. I have yet to do anyone that has an email of any life. How long has that email been in existence? If it's been in existence a couple of years, you're going to be on this dark web report. And if that's been compromised and you reuse passwords, they're going to compromise you in more ways. So one of my emails that's been around for over 20 years, I think it's for sale all over the dark web with different credentials. It's been hacked from Facebook, or it's been hacked from LinkedIn, or I hate to say it, Yahoo, because 20 years ago, we didn't really think about Yahoo being compromised. Well, that's the worst place in the world you could have email. Other than AOL, they're both horrible. But their priority is not security. Their Facebook's priority, Yahoo's, I guess I can go down the list. But especially Facebook and Yahoo and AOL, you are the product. So security doesn't enter into it. They're selling that information to the clear web. They're selling it to the supposedly the good guys. So security's not in their deal. They're just sorry that somebody got the information without them selling it. They didn't get the money for that. So anyway, I'm going to open it up to some questions. If anybody's got any.
Doesn't look like we have anything in the Q&A box or the chat box right away. Give everybody 1 second.
I feel like I missed something on one of those slides. No one's got any questions? You guys want to see that? You want me to go into this a little bit more on the research side? It fascinates me that's what makes me good at this, but it really does fascinate me. I'm really good at this, if I say so myself. What is that Donald Trump says? I'm rich. I'm really rich. So I'm not really rich, but I am really good at this. So so I'd love to cover this again and look at it from the research angle. And they get into things like, what IP address did the attack come from? What was open up the source? Huh?
I said, oh yeah, just go into more detail on it all.
Yeah, we could do a deeper dive of the deeper dive.
Oh, yeah, we could for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, next week will be. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, so next week we're going to be going over COVID-19 threats and attack vector.
And that's a topical thing.
Yeah, I will be sending out an email to everybody that did join us today. So make sure you do register for next week's deeper dive.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. So thanks again for joining us. Feel free to pass around the links to the recordings, which Kenzie will have out very soon. And of course, a lot of our stuff is on the IronTech Security channel on YouTube and other places as well. If you think someone in your organization needs to hear one of them, just fire off an email to Kenzie and she can help you find it. Or sales at IronTech Security. We all see those. Be happy to help you. Command Center at IronTech Security. Or if you've got a suspicious email, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you identify it. With that being said, I guess we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.